How does a guy with no speed manage to outplay some of the fastest defenders in the world? Meet Dennis Bergkamp, the Dutch magician who made football look like art, without even breaking a sweat. Thierry Henry played alongside legends like Messi, Zidane and Ronaldinho. But guess what? He said Dennis Bergkamp was the best he ever played with. Think about that for a second. Bergkamp was that one player everyone wanted on their team. He wasn't just technically brilliant, he always knew where to be, and he was quicker and tougher than most people realised. Sure, he had some limitations, but man, he was a great player. So how did he manage to outshine all those other stars, even with those so-called limits? Let's break it down. We live in a time where football is all about data. Goals, assists, how fast someone runs, how many passes they complete, all that stuff. But if we get too obsessed with stats, we forget why we even watch football in the first place. It's not just about numbers. We watch to be entertained, to see something magical, to feel that excitement when something amazing happens on the pitch. That's what Dennis Bergkamp gave us. You know, football isn't just a sport, it's an art. And if we're talking about art, Bergkamp was like a footballing Da Vinci or Picasso. He wasn't just good, he was a magician. He could make the ball do things that left defenders scratching their heads, wondering what just happened. And yeah, if you look at his stats, they're pretty impressive, but numbers can't capture the way he made the game look so effortless. Let's start from the beginning. Bergkamp grew up in the suburbs of Amsterdam, just a regular kid with a big dream of becoming a professional footballer. He looked up to Glenn Hoddle, and as a kid, he played football non-stop, trying to copy everything Hoddle did. He worked hard to get amazing ball control, vision, and the ability to use both feet. But you know, true genius isn't something you can learn. It's something that's already inside you. And Bergkamp had it. By the time he was 11, Ajax, the biggest club in the Netherlands, already had spotted him and wanted him in their academy. But his parents weren't really feeling the whole competitive football vibe yet. A year later though, they changed their minds and Bergkamp joined Ajax in 1981. At Ajax, the focus was enjoying the game whilst also being competitive. And that's something that stuck with Bergkamp for the rest of his career. He once said, "I love playing football, being out on the pitch with a ball." And if you watch him play, you could tell he meant every word of that. Bergkamp was one of the best players at the Ajax Academy, no doubt about it. By 17, he made his debut for the first team under Johan Cruyff, an absolute legend in football. Imagine that, getting your start under one of the greatest players of all time. Not long after, he scored his first goal, and by the end of that season, he already had a Dutch Cup and a UEFA Cup Winners' Cup medal. That was just the beginning. In 1990, he helped Ajax win the Eredivisie, the Dutch league, and he scored 25 goals in 33 games during the 1990-91 season. Let that sink in. 25 goals. And this wasn't even him at his peak yet. But after dominating in the Netherlands, Bergkamp wanted a new challenge. In 1993, he decided to move to Italy, choosing Internazionale over Barcelona. It seemed like a good idea at first, but Italy wasn't the dreamland he thought it would be. He struggled with the style of play there and only scored 8 league goals in his first season, though he did help Inter win the UEFA Cup. By his second season in Italy, things got worse. He scored just 5 goals in 26 appearances, and the media was all over him, criticising his every move. You could tell Bergkamp wasn't happy there, so when Arsenal came calling in 1995, offering him a way out, he grabbed the chance. Now, when Bergkamp first arrived at Arsenal, things didn't exactly get off to a great start. He didn't score for the first 7 games, and people were already questioning if signing him for £7.5 million was a mistake. But Bergkamp wasn't fazed by the critics. He knew his time would come, and it did. He broke his goal drought against Southampton, and from that point on, Arsenal fans saw what a gem they had. The real turning point came when Arsene Wenger became Arsenal's manager. Wenger saw something special in Bergkamp. He realised that Bergkamp wasn't just a player, he was the player, the guy you had to build your entire team around. And that's exactly what Wenger did. Bergkamp became the heart of Arsenal's attack, not just scoring goals, but setting them up too. In the 1997-98 season, Bergkamp scored 16 goals and helped Arsenal win the Premier League and FA Cup double. And his hat-trick against Leicester that season? Pure magic. His third goal, where he controlled the ball with his right, moved it with his left, and slotted it into the top corner, was a masterpiece. People still talk about it to this day. Before Bergkamp, Arsenal was known for their tough, physical play and reliance on long passes and solid defence. Classic traits of English football. But once Bergkamp stepped onto the field, everything began to shift. He brought a new dimension to the game at Arsenal. Instead of relying heavily on corners and free kicks, Arsenal started to showcase a more refined approach centred around skillful touches and creative play. But if we're talking about iconic moments, we've got to mention that goal against Newcastle. It's probably one of the best goals in Premier League history. Bergkamp received the ball, flicked it around the defender, spun it around him like a ballerina, and finished it off before anyone even knew what was happening. It was like watching a magician pull a rabbit out of a hat. The defender had no chance. No one did. That's why people call Bergkamp a genius. He saw the game in ways no one else could. Thierry Henry, who played with Messi, Zidane and Ronaldinho, some of the greatest players ever, said Bergkamp was the best player he ever played with. That says everything you need to know. Henry and Bergkamp formed one of the best partnerships the Premier League has ever seen, and together they helped Arsenal win another double in the 2001-2 season. And then, of course, there was Arsenal's invincible season in 2003-2004, where they went the entire Premier League campaign without losing a single game. Even though Henry was scoring goals for fun, Bergkamp was still pulling the strings, creating chances and making things happen. At 34 years old, he was still one of the smartest players on the pitch, using his football brain to outplay opponents even if he didn't have the speed anymore. Dennis Bergkamp was pure magic at Arsenal. With 87 goals and 94 assists in 315 games, he's Arsenal's top assist maker in Premier League history. That's not just numbers, it's pure brilliance on the pitch. He stayed loyal to Arsenal, something you don't see much these days. Bergkamp's commitment made him a true legend. Pelé even picked him as one of the FIFA 125 greatest living players. In 2007, he became the first Dutch player inducted into the English Football Hall of Fame. Plus, he finished third in the FIFA Player of the Year award twice. Bergkamp played until he was 37, which is pretty impressive in itself. Even in his final season, when his minutes were limited, he still had moments of brilliance. Arsenal even held a Bergkamp Day to honour him, and in typical Bergkamp fashion, he came off the bench, set up a goal, and scored one himself. That was Dennis Bergkamp, always leaving his mark. David Winner said it best. Bergkamp could turn a crowded pitch into a wide open field with just one pass. And Arsene Wenger nailed it when he said Bergkamp's game was like having a huge vocabulary but knowing how to use it smartly. So yeah, Bergkamp was a genius with the ball. His skills, vision and loyalty make him a football legend. If you're into football, you've got to respect what Bergkamp brought to the game. He wasn't the fastest, but his brain was always working at 1,000,000 miles an hour. It was like he could see things happening before they did. That's how good he was. And Arsenal fans, they loved him. They even got him to stay for one more year, and his last season was all about giving the fans that little extra Bergkamp magic before he said goodbye. So yeah, you can talk about all the great goal scorers, but there's only one Dennis Bergkamp. He was the ultimate football genius, the kind of player who made you love football even more. Players like that, they're rare, and that's why we'll never forget him. If you loved hearing about his insane skills and how he changed the game, smash that like button and hit subscribe for more epic football content. Drop a comment below with your favourite Bergkamp moment or who you want us to cover next.